Thank you. Well, we are just waiting for folks to join us, and everyone, I think,
to be able to sit still for a
Yes,
minute.
that's right.
It's
It's
just
nice just to
lovely.
relax here.
there's Meredith.
Hi, Meredith.
We can't hear you, honey. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hi.
Thank you. I'm just getting home, so I'm carrying my laptop to the refrigerator where I'm going to figure out what comes next. But I sure wanted to be with everybody. So, how's everybody doing on this crazy warm October evening?
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, good. This is a great gathering. Yes. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started so that we can begin the conversation and realize that others will be joining us as we continue. And, oh, and there's Terry. So I want to begin just by welcoming you to this evening of reflecting on the vigil and its power and meaning, and also to hear about what we might be doing next and to think about that maybe as just a time to plant seeds that might grow later or be discovered as we go along. I do want to make a few announcements and then joys and concerns. First of all, this Sunday is a really big Sunday. We've already been talking about it. It's Reformation Sunday, and Jim Forbes is preaching to a number of Alliance congregations. And so he's the morning preacher. And if you haven't heard Jim Forbes, you need to. And that will be a meaningful service. Then at 2 o'clock, there's a service to remember Bob Seymour, which is also going to be powerful. And then Kyle is offering an organ recital that evening at 7. So you might not need to go outside. No, I'm not saying that. But you might want to stay tuned for some of those wonderful opportunities. And I just have to say that Bob Seymour left a legacy that belongs to all of us. So I hope you will avail yourself of the chance to hear him at 2 o'clock, hear about him and remember him. Also, this coming Sunday, the 25th, Charles Coble and Susan Ketchen are beginning a new Sunday school class entitled Environmental Justice and Native American Wisdom. And I'm sorry, Miles Highsmith is not yet here because he's always asking me about what are we doing to talk about Native American wisdom. He might feel a conflict with mindful parenting class. And then don't forget to sign up for the powerful workshop, Groundwater, which is being offered the November 14th from 9 to 12. And I'm both looking forward to it and also, can I be honest, dreading it because of all that is being uncovered in my own psyche and soul as I look at the sins of our country, which are manifold. And so, but in order to do the work, we have to look at the wound and to heal and to grow from that. Any other announcements, Marcus, that you can think of that we should?
I think you've touched on.
And then our joys and concerns. Well, I'm just going to celebrate the joy of the vigils themselves. I think it's been a powerful experience for me of being in solidarity with all of you and to feel, and like Franny, I know she might not want to be a shout out, but just to see Franny out there so many times this summer, all three of you, Vanderkamps, that made such a difference to me. And I just have never felt Binkley as meaningful as it has been on those Friday vigils. We are mourning 3 significant deaths. We've already mentioned Bob Seymour, a dear, dear member who moved out to be near her son just in the last year. Gladys Crisp died. And all the stories I hear of her and what I knew of her was just gentleness, kindness, and love. And then this past early in the wee hours of Monday morning, Connie Gates died. Connie, who's been an activist for justice here in Chapel Hill, Carborough, Durham, has also been working in India for 6 months of the year. Her death came too quickly. And I want you to know that when she got out of the hospital the first time, she drove directly to Binkley Baptist Church so that she could see folks at the vigil, because she said that was her touch point for the week.
Oh.
So it was more than activism, it was spiritual communion.
Mm.
And I wonder if Terry, could you unmute yourself and tell us about this new Binkley member and our dear friend, Dean, your dear friend, Dean Johnson.
Yes, Dean has a number of chronic health issues and has now been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. It has also moved to his liver. He did speak with the palliative team today, and I've already been contacted by the team. There might be a possibility of some chemo, but it would only be for reasons of comfort. He's having a procedure tomorrow where they're going to go down and look in his lung. They think that they're seeing some fungus, and that will be part of determining if he might be eligible for any chemo or not. He has had added me to his palliative team along with his sister. And so I'll be on a call on Friday morning with that team as we have more information from tomorrow's test, and helping him to process what choices he wants to make and what resources are going to be available for him.
Thank you, Terry. Tell me, how long have you known Dean?
Known Dean for 12 years. Started out as my hairdresser and continued to be my hairdresser. And now I have to have a new hairdresser. But that's minor compared to losing my dear friend. It was a big support and encouragement to me when I left Kevin. So it's been a very dear friend.
Wow.
And
Thank you.
he has loved being a part of Binkley, what little bit of time he has. He loved being able to come out to the Friday night vigils when he was able to do that. And he's so appreciative of those who have called him or texted him or sent him cards. Very, very appreciative.
Well, the last time I saw him was at a vigil, so he was out there too. Well, could we take a moment of silence, and then I will offer a short verbal prayer. Beloved God, the Spirit that moves within us and among us, we give thanks for this time to reflect on the gift of being able to act upon your call to justice in each one of us. We give thanks for the lives of Bob Seymour, Gladys Crisp, and Connie Gates, each of whom affected countless people and offered to us a legacy of love. And we pray for our dear brother Dean in this time as he discerns the next steps that would be best for his own life and in his own transitions. We pray for our dear friend Terry as she tries to be of support to him. May love surround them. May peace prevail. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, first of all, on our evening's agenda is to hear from Ginger Clifford about the history and significance of the movement. I'm going to call it a movement. It felt like a Binkley movement, and more than Binkley. So go ahead, Ginger, and you can begin our time.
Am I muted? Can you hear me? After the brutal murder of George Floyd, several Binkley members contacted our humanitarian crisis group to see if we could come up with a plan of some kind of response from Binkley to the ongoing racist brutality that we were witnessing all too often. So we quickly got together a Zoom meeting with a few Binkley folks to brainstorm ideas. And at that meeting, Charles Coble came up with the idea of standing along Fordham Boulevard with signs with the names of men and women who'd been killed at the hands of the police. Marcus suggested that we call it a vigil, a Black Lives Matter vigil. So right after that, the details just started coming, and we held our first vigil on Friday, June the 5th. We were going to have one vigil, but as the story goes, the Highsmiths happened to be out of town, and they said, could you have one more vigil the following week, because we would like to be a part of this. Well, Alice Glover stepped right up and said, of course. And she took the leadership of that and the organization and said that she would get hosts and we would change hosts each week for as long as people wanted to come. So a big thank you to Alice for keeping this going. So as of today, we've had a total of 20 vigils every Friday from 5 to 6. We wear masks and we're socially distanced, thanks to Charles Coble, who comes and paints spots where we stand about 8 feet apart all along Fordham Boulevard. So every week we have between 45 and 65 people who attend, and we've had a lot of people from other churches who have wanted to join us, but we've encouraged them to start their own vigils because we really don't have the space to socially distance safely while we're in a pandemic. The one time we did have 200 people show up, we were expecting them and we were prepared. And that we learned by staggering in 2 rows that we could handle more people. The week that everybody came was the week they were coming to show support for the young African-American woman who had been at our vigil the week before and had been assaulted. This was on July the 3rd. And we did let the congregation know about this. I'm sure everybody that's listening is well aware of it. A man from a nearby complex had walked over and he was very angry with our message of Black Lives Matter. And he punched a young woman with us who was at the vigil right in the face. She went to the hospital. She's fine. He has been charged with assault on a female, and his hearing is to be next week. Next month. And several Binkley people who were at that vigil are going to be testifying in that case. All of us, including the young woman who was attacked, are adamant about the fact that we will not be intimidated by this type of violence. And so the very next week, we were right out there and have been out there ever since. So that's kind of the background on how this came about.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ginger. Very concise and helpful. And we don't want to speak her name, but we hold her in prayer, this young woman and her family.
Yes, and she came back to the vigil several other times with her family and with other friends.
That's so courageous and healthy. Good for her. I wonder if Lynn would now step up and tell us about, she's been there every week with her table, getting out the vote. She's met folks who've brought water and snacks, and I wonder what the vigil has meant to her and what she wants to say about the vote.
Thank you,
Or-
Stephanie. So I had been involved a little bit in the vigil, but not so much. I think I came on after the assault and got a little more involved then. But I had volunteered with You Can Vote, which is a nonpartisan get out the vote organization, and they were doing voter registration and that kind of thing. And then they offered this opportunity to communities of faith and businesses where they would give you lots of materials to hand out and information, and you get trained by them, that kind of thing. And I thought, well, you know, we have a community of faith and it's right there on Friday afternoons. So I went to our committee and to Marcus and to you, Stephanie, and asked you all what you thought about having a voting table at the vigil. You know, voting is critical for social justice matters of any kind. And so you agreed, and I appreciated that. And so since then, we've had a voting table out there with information. It's been updated weekly since about August. And it's been great. And I think that there has been information that has been shared and needed information because it's updated. But I have to tell you, our vigil participants are a pretty aware group. And they are a registered group and they are a voting community. So it may not be the most needed group for information, but usually there's at least somebody each week who finds something new that helps them. And we've been sharing volunteer information for the last several weeks too, so that hopefully if people do want to volunteer to get out the vote, then we've got organizations they can go to. We've been putting a page in the Beacon and in the newsletter every Friday, the Beacon Monthly, on voting and updates on voting. So for people in the congregation who might not come out to the vigil, who might need that information, that's there too. The voting table has been wonderful for me personally because it's gotten me there. And I have to say that I was involved with Binkley a number of years ago, quite a bit, when my daughter was young. And then I got busy with other things, and I wasn't active for a long time. And now this has brought me back, and I appreciate it so much and appreciate what Binkley stands for. And I guess that's the personal part that I'd like to talk about with these vigils, the impact that they are making on the community. And I'm just sort of a personification of that, but impact on the community. There's the obvious enthusiasm of the people who drive by every week, you know, honking the horns, and repeaters. We know that they're repeaters because we see the drivers, right? They come by after work, and certain trucks that honk their horns, and then there are people who are negative. But you know what? They make a lot of noise, and if you wave at them and you smile, you know, other people don't know that they've been negative, right? So it's just another bit of noise that's going on, you know, past the vigil. But it's a statement that we're making out there, and it's communication to the community about what Binkley stands for. And I just want to mention several people, individuals, on one particular day, because I think that this is it's heartfelt and it's amazing to me. On one particular day, so I'm up there at the front of the church, you know, I can't always be at the road because I got this table up there. And but three different people came up into the drive up to the church front. One woman was came up and got out of her car and was talking to Dale. Dale was there that day. I was talking to Dale and me. And she just wanted to know who this church was that put up these banners, you know, these social justice banners, and had folks out there every single week with Black Lives Matter signs, and she wanted to know about it. And she said, you know, I'm an atheist. And she said, I'm an atheist because I grew up in the Baptist church. And we said, well, you know what? We're a Baptist church, but we're not your mother's Baptist church. And we're not my mother's Baptist church that she grew up in Sampson County, North Carolina. We are inclusive, and we hope that we bring a message of love and inclusivity to everybody, and talk to her about, you know, how Dale's so wonderfully enthusiastic, and he talked to her about the church, and she was just amazed. And it made a difference to her, really, who this church was that was doing this. So she was this one woman that day. Another woman drove up a little while later in an SUV, and she's in the passenger seat, and she's in the driver's seat, nobody was in the passenger seat. She reached over to me and she handed me this little bottle of hand sanitizer. And she said, hold on, I'm gonna tell you what this is for. So I take the hand sanitizer, and then she hands me a box of Krispy Kreme donuts, big old box, Krispy Kreme donuts. And then she hands me a box of snacks, and she says, I've got a case of water in the back. So she too had been driving by every Friday on her way home from work, and she talked to her mother. So this was not a kid, probably a woman between 25, 30, something like that. Talked to her mother, and she said, I got to do something for those people because I'm seeing them out there every single Friday, and this is important, and she appreciated it, right? And so she brought these goodies to the group, and that was amazing. And then Deneen came up, and Deneen's going to talk in a minute, but Deneen was the third person on that one day. Deneen came up and talked to us and introduced herself. So, you know, we haven't had 3 people bringing us snacks every single Friday, but there is always somebody who lets the group know that they've been impacted by this, and impacted by this statement that Binkley is making out there, both with the folks lined up and with the banners. The banners are noticed too. People want to know, what is this church who puts up these social justice banners? No other church is doing this. And it's what Binkley has stood for forever. And I don't know, I think it's amazing, and makes me really proud to be associated. And I think anybody associated with Binkley knows that this is what we're all about, right? So really quickly, because it's my shtick, I have to go to voting plug. Y'all vote. Early voting is right now. You can drop off your absentee ballot through the 31st. You can ask for curbside voting if you need to, if you don't feel like going inside a polling place, if you're sick, if you just feel that you can't wear a mask, if you feel that for whatever reason you can't go in, no one's going to deny you curbside voting, can vote curbside. There are still many opportunities to volunteer. Both you can vote, Reclaim Our Vote, NAACP. If you just Google volunteering, you know, if you Google Get Out to Vote North Carolina, oh my God, you'll come up with so many different organizations, as well as political parties, if that's what you want to do. So thank you for letting me be involved again. And I'm a fortunate gal to get to do this. So thank you.
Yeah, we are so blessed to have you, Lynn, sitting there, and also, besides getting out the vote, talking to folks who come by, and being also a hospitality. Every time I've come, you've always said, hi, Stephanie, we're so glad to see you. You've been a great asset and gift to us. Thank you.
Fun.
Well, we are actually ahead of schedule. so I hope that gives us time for others to speak, but I wonder if we could turn now to Megan and Miles Highsmith and then followed by Lucy and Joel to talk about what it's meant for families with children and youth and what the vigils have meant to them individually and as families. So we'll start with Megan and Miles.
Hey guys, maybe I'll start and let Megan chime in afterwards. I think as we talk to the kids about it, the response for them has been, it's something that they believe in.
We have, you want to tell them who?
Sorry, our kids are Turner and Mercer. Turner's almost 14. Our son and our daughter Mercer is 10 years old. So I think for both of them, it's something that they believe in. And when we talk to them about it, I think it feels good for them to, be involved with and support something that they already believe in. So I'll say that first. On the other hand, as an almost 14-year-old boy that's very active, for him to stand outside for an hour being still is probably more difficult than for some of the others. So we have varying degrees of participation, but I think having participated at some level for both of them has been positive. And I think it does, in addition to supporting a cause, an effort that they believe in, I think it also makes them feel good. And they've been vocal about that. I think for me and or us, we want things like this to be part of the kids' experience, and we hope, sometimes doing is easier than teaching or saying, and this is, with a group like this, that's, such a self-starting group, and I think very effective in these ways. For them to see this and see it in action and hear us talk about it, my hope is that they'll, have this in their upbringing, but also maybe that'll continue into their adult lives as they get older. We've had some concerns about safety. Obviously, we've had some issues here and there, but just I think for me personally, there's, you get different responses from people on the road and otherwise. And sometimes the responses are negative, and that can, instill some level of anxiety or fear. I would say, I think Megan and I feel that probably to some degree. The kids do not. When we ask them, they don't, if there's an adverse reaction, they don't go to a place of concern or danger. They sort of say, all right, well, we've got 99 others who are honking and waving and one that's giving a different gesture. And I think on the balance, they feel like it's good. And if anything, they're feeling for the community that's being directed towards. So I'm happy, to say, at least from our perspective, that our kids aren't feeling that fear. So, I think I'll leave it there and let Megan chime in, but I think it's definitely been a rewarding experience, even though they're not, we don't mandate it. They've gone some here and there, but definitely not to everyone. But I think it's been an important part of life for them to feel like they're actually doing something in connection with an effort that they believe in.
Yeah, I would second all that, and I would just add that, I think we joined this church because of its social justice history, and this to me feels like this is what faith is about. This is I said to Alice the other day, I said this action, this feels like hope in action to me. When we are out there, I feel hope, I feel community, I feel love. And and the children feel that. There's an energy, it's just powerful. And it brings me to tears. I mean, there's not one vigil that doesn't go by that I don't feel a surge of love. And it's beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful. And there is the other stuff too. But by and large, what I feel is the power of love, which is, to me, faith. And so it's been, to me, one of the most important parts of teaching our children about love and, fighting for other people, and what I think why you go to church, why are you a part of a community like this. So we've found it very powerful for our family. We've had lots of good discussions, and we feel very grateful that the church is continuing to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. And before Lucy and Joel, I just want to say that it's been powerful for me as a minister to children to see these children out there. It's, well, that's one of my roles. Anyway, I just have, it's made my day every time I see them. Okay.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know if I have too much more to contribute. Megan and Miles are so well spoken, but I think for me, we did go every week, and we did make Franny go every week for several months. She has tap dance now on Friday night, so she's not coming anymore, but we chose to make it a required thing because for me it was a time to have a bit of meditation on the subject, and it's not necessarily comfortable, and it definitely wasn't comfortable many nights out there when it was hot and humid and sunny, but it meant a lot to me to have that time that I was uncomfortable and I was on the side of a busy road, and it was something that I was doing to put my mind in the space of this great tragedy that has happened, continues to happen, and to stand there and just meditate on that subject for an hour, which is doing something. It's not much, but for me, it was important that it was something that I could do, and that we could do as a family. I think the only other story I wanted to share that happened pretty early on was a time that a man pulled up into the parking lot and got out of his car. I don't know if any of y'all were here for this one, but yeah, he came out of his car shouting and was really upset that a bunch of white people were out on the side of the road with Black Lives Matter signs. Luckily, April was there that night, and she is amazing when dealing with people who are elevated emotions. And she went and talked to this guy, but she came back and reported to us that, he was upset that we were out there, and he kept shouting, "Where were you 4 years ago? Where have you been this whole time?" This kind of stuff. And I thought, that guy has a really good point. And then I also thought, this church has been here. This church was here 4 years ago, and the people in this congregation have been doing this work for a really long time. And it made me proud to be part of a community that has put this work at the forefront of ministry for so many years, obviously as personified by Bob Seymour. But I thought, that guy really doesn't know who he's talking to. Yeah, it's a bunch of white people, but he doesn't know the whole story here. So so that was pretty powerful too. I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
Not really. I have my reflections on it are pretty scattered. It's meant a lot of different things at a lot of different times. There's been so many occasions for different thoughts. Largely, it feels kind of selfish, but it's been an occasion for my own, I think, like what Lucy said, it's been an occasion for meditation on this on this issue, on this topic, on this matter, and it has kept it an active part of my life. And And in particular, you know, I think early on, both Lucy and Franny decided to carry names of people in particular. And so I don't remember if I think they may even have picked my name for me. Like they had prepared to go to the first vigil and they said, oh, here's a sign. And so I quickly
we did some research on them and
Yeah,
we had a good conversation.
Yeah, so I quickly read up on that, and there was, I don't know whose idea that was or how that started as a thing in at these vigils, but that's been a pretty powerful thing for me because there's a lot of responsibility in holding that person's name. I have sort of reflected on that, you know, who that person is. It's made me, you know, because I carry that same name every time for the most part. It's made me think about that person as a person, you know, not just a name, but I carry that name and then I reflect on what his actual life was and the circumstances of his life. And thankfully, you know, this is a day and age where we know more about people than just the last moment of their life too. If you can look up any one of these names and you can get a whole biography. And so that's been really meaningful for me too. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you. That's all of I'm already very moved by these testimonies and the witness that you all are sharing. And I think it is both personal and prophetic. And I like the idea of meditating. I mean, not just rushing by, this is not another statistic, but this is a real person. These are real people who are being victimized and you know, killed. I wonder now if we could turn to our new friend, Deneen Sutton, A Certain Woman, and if you would talk about what drew you to the vigil and what it's meant to you.
Okay, I am unmuted. One moment. Oh, I wanted to share something for Lynn. Let's see. I don't know if you can see. Can you see it?
Kind of some glare there.
All right, I'll have to send it, but it's my I voted picture that I took on yesterday. I was so excited going over to University Mall and they had a nice little, they had a big sign. So I was able to take a picture with the whole sign. So it was great. I've done that. Check that box for 2020. So let's see. I think I'm supposed to say what drew me to the vigil. And I will say I was one of those riding down the street, beeping my horn on my way from work a couple of Fridays. And one particular Friday, I was leaving a little earlier, so it hadn't started yet. And I saw people out there and either nosy or curious, one or the other. So whichever it was drove me, you know, over to talk to the people and find out, like Lynn said, what are you guys doing and when, and, you know, because I wanted to be able to be a part of it. And I got all the information that I needed. I believe, let's see, it was Ginger and Richard, I think, who were out there that day. And they were so patient because I am very chatty and I get excited like really quick. And so they let me talk all the way through everything that I wanted to say. And I discovered they were having the vigil every Friday from 5 to 6, 5 to 6, right? Okay.
Yes.
So I made it my business to get home, get changed, and make it back so that I would be able to be a part of it. So I took a little video on August the 28th when I came, just because I was very moved and excited to be able to connect in my community. I am a new resident of Chapel Hill. I've been in North Carolina from Washington, D.C. For the last almost 10 years, and growing up in Washington, D.C. with a very active church, a godfather who marched on Washington, marched on anywhere that needed to be marched on for rights for seniors and children and just everybody. And so this is in my blood. It's hard to, to Megan and you guys and Lucy, it stays in there. So when you expose your children to these kind of activities, it doesn't go away. So for me, during the COVID shutdown, safe shelter, everything, and to see these horrible crimes being committed against humanity, and feeling like, what can I do? There is a march on Washington, but am I going to Washington with 1 million people in the middle of a pandemic? That was not something on my agenda. So being able to come down into my own community and connect with my community is what this has done for me. So in the words of my godfather, who always said to us, if you are not part of the solution, you are the problem. So for me, Binkley has helped me to become part of the solution. And just like the other person who came by, I looked up Binkley. I said, well, who are these people? I want to know, what have they done? Where have they been? And I found out that, as Lucy said, they have been on the front lines for a very, very long time. And I'm happy to be able to be a part of it. And speaking with Lynn and Stephanie, I'm like, okay, what's next? So I'm excited. And I will say this, the other, I want to say provocation for me to join the vigil is I saw Black Lives Matter signs up and I didn't see many Black lives. So I said, well, let me connect and let me be a part of this solution with my brothers and sisters, with humanity. So that's one of the other reasons that I wanted to make sure that I showed up, where I could and do what I can. That's it. I turned off my timer, so I'm done.
Well, you're fine. It's a joy to hear how you arrived among us and how you gave and dedicated getting home, getting changed, getting out there, being a part of us. And we hope that continues for a long, long time. Deneen, you're one of us now. Thank you. Well, now it's open mic time, and we have John and Vivian Honor and Charlene and Craig Meisner and Gill Keelan, who is joining us after he teaches his class, which has just ended or is ending. But I wonder, maybe we could start with John and Vivian to say something about what has brought you out to the vigils, what they have meant to you, what are your hopes in bearing witness out there on Fordham, and what you've learned from this experience. And there, I think that's Gill joining us too. Thank you.
Yes.
So
first I want to say thank you to Stephanie, Marcus, Charles, Lynn, Alice, and others who brought this demonstration to fruition. I was immensely heartwarmed by certain things that happened. First, I got to represent myself as a Black woman. I represented my church, which I love very much. And I represented my community as well. And I think that it was awfully hard. It was also heartwarming to see so many people from Binkley there and from our community. There were people there that I had never met and was glad to meet them, and so glad that they came out to join us. It gave me a good feeling to see passersby honking their horns and giving us a thumbs up for our demonstration, and to let us know that they approved and endorsed what we were doing for our church and our community. The one thing that I would say is that I do hope that we'll think about doing this again next year in terms of in the spring. It's an activity that brings a lot of us together and we are united around one central theme. So I hope that we will do it again next spring. And one thing I'd like also to add is I hope that we will invite, and I don't know if it's quite appropriate, to invite some off-duty policemen to come and share with us and participating with this, if that can be done.
Well, good evening, everybody. I don't know where to start, and it's hard to stop me sometimes, but first of all, a certain woman, I probably met your godfather out there somewhere in one of those marches, but it's been and I miss Dr. Seymour immensely, because in many ways, this conversation is about what he contributed as well. It's such a long and in some ways painful journey. I'm so proud of the parents who brought their kids out. It's gonna live with them all their lives. And the one thing that I regret about this country is that we've lied to all of us in our educational system for so long that everybody's confused. I just got off a call with 5 Black men who we're all professional coaches, and we are realigning how we're going to collaborate to contribute. And if you look at the news every day, you will just get blinded. And so I think I talked to one of the audiences at the church about getting up every morning and asking yourself, what are you going to do to make the world better? And this whole effort, no question, has made the world better. It's just I'm sure there are people who've been out there frustrated and saw people pass by, not many though, gratefully, who gave the one finger salute or said something nasty, but I'll bet you that they went home changed. They won't admit it, but they went home different. Whenever you see people who give themselves to make the world better, you know what? People get jealous. They will ask themselves, what am I doing? And I think it was the certain woman there who this saying, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. There is absolutely no escaping where we are in America. Before joining the business call, I was on LinkedIn for a moment, and there was a 98-year-old and 100-year-old brothers, white brothers who served in World War II. One was in the infantry, the other was a pilot. And I had to comment on it because, and what I said is that I thank them for their contributions and the contributions of their comrades. But they were out there, and I said to people, if you haven't voted, I hope that when you go to the booth, you vote for democracy. Because the democracy will never be perfect unless we are the people who make it perfect. So this has meant a lot to me. You know, I go back to Vivian and I go back. I'm not going to let her off the hook. She's as old as I am, but we go back to the 50s and 60s. And I wish I had a nickel for every step in a march that I participated in. But you know what? We have a grandson, we have kids. This is just another contribution that we make. We didn't make every one of them, but every little thing that you can do is not little. It means a lot. And I'm really proud of Binkley. We joined Binkley on purpose. We joined Binkley because Binkley knows what it is, who it is, and where they're going and where they've been. And I don't want to see Binkley ever to lose that part of this mission. And as long as we put Christ in it, we'll get there. I'm going to shut up in 1 second. I told you it's hard for me to start and it's hard for me to stop. I recently participated in a program where the blacks had to imagine they were white and the whites had to imagine they were black. And one of the questions is, what changed? Think about that. Because you know what? I concluded nothing really changed. Because it's all about who you are as a human being and what your responsibilities are. So I'm going to leave it there. Stephanie, great job. Pastor, great job. All the participants, great job. Keep raising your children the way you are raising them. You are not making a mistake. Trust me. So God bless all of us. And that's where it's going to end, Pastor. I'm quitting right now.
Well, John, I have to say, maybe you were meant to be a preacher.
Well, my dad took care of that and my grandfather. So I think they didn't need another one.
Well, you got some of the genes, that's for sure. Thank you. Thank you. That's very encouraging.
Thanks for the opportunities,
to both of you. Thank
you. Yeah.
Yeah. So glad to hear from you. And I'm just going alphabetically. Charlene and Craig are after Gill. And so Gill is not been a member of Binkley, but he came, and we would love to hear, Gill, what brought you to the Black Lives Matter Vigil and what it's meant to you. And then we'll hear from Craig and Charlene. And then others who want to share. It's not.
We're now in the open mic section of today's presentation. I'm not going to do a comedy thing or sing. I do play the piano, but that would not work either. I did write something down, so I'm just going to kind of sort of wing this or just sort of read this. But so, yeah, I'm not a member at Binkley. This all started for me with a class that I took this summer in multicultural competence. I'm hopefully going to be, or I'm going to be applying to some master's programs in clinical mental health counseling soon. And so I've been taking a couple of classes in preparation for that. When I heard the title, I was really excited, and the idea of multicultural competence sounded pretty benign to me. I just figured I was going to learn about different cultures. And it turns out I was very wrong. It was really, it forced me to look inside at my own biases and prejudices. It made me think pretty deeply about racism, how privileged as a fairly affluent white guy I was. So instead of this kind of light class where I was going to learn about different cultures, I spent the summer learning about oppression, frequently described as a bunch of isms. So this wasn't just about racism, it was about ageism and ableism, genderism, and other forms of ethnic and religious oppression. So the class kind of humbled the crap out of me. Unfortunately, you can't take a class and just become multiculturally competent either. So now I realize I'm on this lifelong journey. But in the end, it made me realize that when we set ourselves as superior, we set ourselves apart. We separate ourselves from our humanity. I always get choked up at this part. But that's not how I want to live my life. So while I was taking this class, I was kind of also realizing that I was living in pretty much of a white bubble. So this is the part where I'm gonna, I consider myself an agnostic, but I'm gonna pull out a couple of religious metaphors on you guys right now. It's fair to say that God sent a few angels my way. So angel one, I met when I was walking in my neighborhood one night. I struck up a conversation with a neighbor that I might have normally just smiled and waved at. She's African-American, and a bit to my surprise, I found myself talking with her about wanting to connect with the African-American community. She was pretty awesome about the whole line of discussion, didn't freak out, and suggested that I should try attending one of the vigils of Binkley. So the day I parked my car in the lot at Binkley and started getting out and holding the Black Lives Matter sign that my daughter had made for a protest she had been to, I started feeling that feeling that you get when you realize you're doing something more important than usual. Something that goes beyond just taking care of yourself. So that started in May, and I'm still borrowing that sign. So then came angel number 2, which is Marcus. I guess on the kind of mission that you give an angel, to welcome strangers. We talked about my story, and he suggested I sign up for the How to Be an Anti-Racist book club. That, as you know, was a facilitated discussion group led by angel number 3, Meredith Bratcher. She very lovingly led us through some occasionally challenging sessions. I was so impressed and grateful at how the Binkley community made me feel so much at home. So now, as I mentioned to Alice Glover, I just can't quit you guys. I've developed some great connections with the friends I've met. I know I'm helping myself, giving myself an opportunity to act. And I hope that we're creating at least a little ripple that may move the racial justice yardstick just a little. And that's it.
Well, Gill, thank you. What a witness. And we're saying amen and thank you. Thank you. And that book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, is not an easy go either. It really asks a lot.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing your feelings as well, Gill.
Oh, sure.
Well, I want to hear, thank you. So Charlene and Craig, I want you to know who they are. They are longtime Binkley members, but a lot of folks haven't known them because they have been missionary or working overseas in international work in Bangladesh, and would come home in the summer and at Christmas. And Charlene, since I've arrived at Binkley, has taught Vacation Bible School every summer until this one, which was a little bit different, but we're going to get her back involved in children's Sunday school and children's work because she's really gifted. And both of them they've retired, they came back home, and guess what they came home to? COVID. But they are grateful to be back among us, and I feel that this has been one way they've reconnected. So I'll let them speak to what it's meant to them.
Thank you. I would like to first say I appreciate so much what everyone has said. It's been really helpful to me to hear other people's thoughts and feelings on the vigil because, after we do the vigil, we just go home and I'm like, well, so what was everybody else feeling and during this thing? Anyway, so we were overseas, as Stephanie was saying, and we watched the news religiously. And we hear about everything that's going on in America. And I was like, oh, we got to get home, Craig. We've got work to do over there. I mean, we've finished our work here in Bangladesh. It's time to go over there and do something, because things aren't going right. And so I was just so grateful for the opportunity that Binkley provided for us to join the vigil and to take action on what we think and believe. And I'm also very thankful that I got to know people who think and feel the same as we do, because coming home in COVID, we didn't have the opportunity to, go out and meet people.
No, exactly.
So it was, selfishly speaking, it was really great because we got to know other people with our mask on, with our signs. We're talking to people. Oh, you're this, you're that. Oh, we're getting to know people. So it was also actually a time of fellowship for us.
Yep.
That's selfish in a way, but it was really helpful to us. I was really looking forward to going on Friday afternoon. Oh, I'm going to see some people. I'm going to talk to people.
Yeah.
And know that at the same time, we were doing something that we were acting on our beliefs. So I'm just hoping that the vigil is making a small difference. And it sounds like you all feel that it is, to the people that drive by. It's an influence to them to just maybe just think about racism in their own lives. So that's what I have to say.
Yeah, and for me, after 39 years of working overseas, coming back in July and trying to reorient ourselves to America, it's been important because we're adjusting, we're looking, learning. We're watching, and I think being part of a movement toward anti-racism is really important. I mean, inclusivity is what Binkley is. I'm so proud to be part of Binkley. I cannot tell you, being part of an inclusive community is so important, because in international circles, that's who we are, that's what we were, and what we want to be. And so Binkley meets that all 100%, and we're very proud to be part of Binkley.
Well, thank you so much, Charlene and Craig. And, in the months ahead, I hope we get to hear more of your work overseas. I know one of the last things you were working on, Craig, was helping farmers get a grant to be able to grow their own vegetables during COVID when families are starving in Bangladesh. And so thank you for your work there, and we're glad you're home too.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to go with the faces that I see on the screen. I know Sybil and Adams have been out there, and I wonder if you feel comfortable speaking about what it's meant to you. I'm sorry for your non-video participants. We know you're there and we love you. Just a second. Just a second, I just want to say that Franny recognized that Charlene played the White Witch during the 2019 VBS. So, anyway, to you, Sybil, go ahead.
I've been so moved by what everyone's been saying tonight. I don't know when I have come to tears or close to tears over and over again. And it's been so special to be part of this vigil. And to have the sense of community and a sense of a common goal. And it's also been wonderful to see members of the church and to see other people who aren't members of the church joining us. It's just felt so terrific. So I feel very sad to think that we might take a break. I know it's going to get cold, but we look forward so much to Fridays of being together and having a sense of we're doing something productive in a time that feels where it feels very hard to do things that are productive. But I am so grateful that it's been going on.
This has been church. We haven't been able to be there physically, but getting out on the side of the road is being church. And there are people there that you don't see on Sunday, but this is church. And it's been a very wonderful experience.
Thank you, Adams and Sybil. And I want to turn to Terry Huneycutt, if you have anything you'd like to add.
I don't know that it's anything new that hasn't already been said. I don't get there every Friday night, but when I do, it's such a good fit. It just is the place to be. And like many of you, just being able to see some of your faces in the flesh instead of just on a flat screen, see a little bit more dimensionally. Even though we can't hug and snuggle, it's still just so good to be a part of that fit when I can be there.
Thank you, Terry. And I'm not sure if Marge, have you been able to get out to the vigils? I think you've had to deal with restrictions, Marge.
Well, first I had restrictions, and then I was out of town, and then I was sick. So I have come a couple times, but I found it very meaningful coming. And I like sharing with my granddaughters that we're doing this. And when I go, I always tell them about going, because they early on in this period, they were out marching in Raleigh and Holly Springs and Apex. And so it makes me bind to them and helps them see that what they did was important. And I'm just real proud of them. But, you know, that's kind of ended for them now. So I need to keep reminding them about what's behind. I keep asking them, why are you picketing? Why are you marching for Black Lives Matter? Because I want them to think about more than just the words, but what does it really mean? And so I try to talk with them about that. So I will be coming more often now. The restrictions are up, and I'm able to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Marge. Well, as things go, yes. Ginger?
Wait.
There you go.
There I go. Thank you. I've been listening to everybody and loving what you say. And there's so many thoughts. I'm going to try not to repeat so many of the things that you said. I think that we need to think we don't really know what it means to other people when they go by. We never, ever know. I've known years later when somebody would mention to me, oh, I remember when you stood up in that meeting and said such and such. And I would be like, I didn't think anybody was listening. People take in more than you know. And when we go by, when they drive by with little children in the back seat, I try to send these thoughts like, have the conversation with your children. Because if they don't tell them, maybe the children will ask and say, what does that mean? What are those letters? Why are they standing there? Who are they? I think that we just don't know what impact we might have. Another thing that is something within me is when people go by, I really look into the cars to see who they are and who gives me a thumbs up and who gives me a negative response and who claps and who looks like it made their day. And guess what? You cannot guess who's going to be the negative and who's going to be the positive. It doesn't matter if they're young or old or black or white tattooed or have a muffler that is very loud, or driving a truck or a car, it doesn't make any difference. You cannot tell who will be negative and who will be positive, which is a good lesson for this whole march we're having to become anti-racist. Dick and I have for years gone to protests and marches and demonstrations and vigils, but standing with our church is so important to us. If the church isn't going to stand up for injustice, who is? People, including myself, have felt abandoned by many churches in America. What in the world are they thinking if you don't stand up for injustice? So to be there with us and with the community, that's the lovely part. People are joining us from the community, is extremely important to us. And we think you can't look at it and say, what does it accomplish? You have to look at all of the different fingers and networks and tentacles and just let it be.
So Dick is now, thank you, Ginger. Dick is now going to talk about his experience and his reflections, and also talk about the future and what we're thinking, what the group is thinking.
Oh, okay. I'm not so sure I knew about the last thing, but I'll do my best. Yeah, I do have some personal comments. A lot of them have already been said, so I'm not going to say those. But I think I've been struck by the many Black people who make this trip along 15501, going to Durham, going to the hospital from Durham, going back and forth to Alamance County or wherever they go along the way. That it's a big mix of people and a lot of trucks, but a lot of cars. Particularly for me, I've sought out Black drivers or families in cars because I wanted to look at them and let them see me telling them that Black Lives Matter. And it's a visceral kind of connection that you make in that kind of situation where you see, oh, we are one. And so that's been incredibly important to me. I guess I think John and Deneen maybe both said, it's really about love. And it's a way to say, I love you to one another. So I think for us too, it's a continuation of the legacy of Bob Seymour. Ginger and I always remind each other that the first time we came to Binkley about 50 years ago, actually I think it's when we joined Binkley, we marched together on Franklin Street to First Baptist Church in supporting integration of businesses and organizations along that stretch and in Chapel Hill. And this is one more step on that journey that we started 50 years ago with them. So, so anyway, it's incredibly encouraging to hear all the comments here, to see that this means as much to you as it does to me. And I don't know where this is going to take us ultimately. And I think, I know early on, when we were starting these, several people asked, what's the goal of the vigils? What do you hope to accomplish with this? And I can remember Marcus answered it just right for me. And he said, It's simply standing in witness is reason enough. And I think we've done that and continue to do that. There have been distractions along the way and lots going on in people's lives. And I think when I said I don't know where we're going, I'm not worried about that. We will find it as it comes. We will find opportunities to take this beyond the vigil into the rest of the world. And we've worked, I think, pretty well not to get hung up on making it perfect. That we sort of said, let's just do it. We'll fix the problems as we encounter them as we go along. And I think that's worked well. We've had just an incredible support for this from people in Binkley who've come and just appeared and said, what can I do? Or when we said, what maybe we should do something about voting. Lynn appeared right there. And also others, Kate and Alice, both have been involved in the get out the vote stuff and have led that. So we continue to find what this means for us. And we've gained energy, knowledge, friendships, and a lot more. But I know vigils aren't for everybody at Binkley. And so I hope that people who are not feel this isn't the thing for them, and I'm not sure we have those people on this call, but I hope we'll encourage people who, well, we might ask them to come and they say, no, that's just not for me. I hope we'll help them find another way to speak out for people who are treated unjustly and inhumanely, or who are discriminated in other ways, against in other ways. There are lots of ways to do that. I'll just echo Stephanie's reminder about groundwater. This is another way to get at what does it mean for us to speak out, to do, to be different. That's coming up November 14th. And we hope that it will also lead to a lot of discussions at Binkley about what we should be and where we should be going. So if you'd like to join the session, you'll see ads of it everywhere. If you look at the bulletin or the Friday newsletter or other places, you'll see that there are announcements telling you how to join.
We have them at the vigil as well. We have announcements.
Yeah, we'll have them at the vigil. So last September, Binkley approved placing a statement in local newspapers declaring that we have a humanitarian crisis in our country and world, and that churches, other religious groups, and community organizations, as well as individuals, need to speak out in opposition to the injustice and marginalization of people because of their race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, or national origin, among other things. And the Black Lives Matter vigils are but one of our efforts to combat those injustices. So we thank all of you who've been part of this. I have to come back to Alice, who's really been the spearhead for this, and she is tied up in voting things in her lawyer role. And so she's been such an inspiration to us that we are happy to follow along behind her. So this Friday, so now what in the future? It's short. This Friday, we'll be standing as usual to join us if you can. So this coming Friday, that is day after tomorrow, we'll be back out there along Fordham. But the following two Fridays, October 30th and November 6th, we're going to move off of Fordham. I think that we're feeling like that will be a particularly vulnerable time. And there are going to be people who are upset about the election, regardless of what happens. And that could be dangerous. So we've decided that for those 2 weeks, we will hold candlelight vigils. The first one won't be very dark, but I think by the 6th of November, when time has changed, it'll be pretty dark out there. We're going to try doing candlelight vigils, and we'll try there to name the people that we've been holding our signs up with and lighting a candle for them and finding a way to continue our efforts to work for justice in our country, in our world. We'll figure out what happens after that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Dick and Ginger, we also have to give kudos to you all for being out there week after week, championing and moving tables and encouraging us, bringing insect repellent. I can think of a lot of things you all have done to support us. We have come to, what time is it? Just a few minutes. And I guess I would like just to invite anyone who would like to speak, and then we'll end with a prayer. So any thoughts you'd like to offer to this group? And I'm including you non-video participants.
Stephanie, this is Janet O'Neill, one of the non-videos. Can I say just a word?
Sure.
This was so important to me. I've been driving back from my dad's house. I've stopped now so I can speak, but I wanted to not miss this. So I'm on non-video because I'm in the dark in the car, but I wanted to not miss this because it's been such an important part of my life. And I want to be sure to thank all the people who've made it possible. It's hard to name all the names, but many of them have already been named. And I'm so grateful to the staff and to Dick and Ginger and Lynn and Alice and everyone else who's been a host. My feelings have been echoed by so many people. This whole thing started for me like a prayer. I had a hard time not crying for many of the vigils. And it's also been it's also been extreme joy. And like Ginger, I just love the little faces in the back seats who go home and ask questions. And I love it's been a joyful opportunity to be with familiar friends. So I'm just gratitude and just wanted to thank you all for what has happened and for getting.
Thank you, Janet. We heard the essence of what you had to say. Thank you so much. And we heard from Jim and Libba Wells, who are giving thanks. I want to say that I had over the summer a friend from seminary I've known for too many years to speak openly about. She came from Wisconsin, and she came out with Deep Mala and I and stood, and she was in tears. She said, I wish that I were part of a congregation who would make such a stand. And she's a minister, and she was just saying how much the witness meant to her. And I think about that with the folks who've driven by who have maybe begun over time also to take in the power of that we're not just another news cycle down the street to something else. We are staying with this extremely important justice issue, and we're not going to let it go. So even if we change our medium and our participation, how we do this, we're not saying that we're not to keep we're going to keep keeping on. And so this is just a turn in the road, and we'll see what evolves. But I know for me, groundwater is going to be the next big thing for me, because I know it's going to ask me to do some hard thinking. And I give thanks that we all have said this matters so much that we're going to learn, we're going to speak up, we're going to stand. We're not just going to let it be something that goes by without our saying something. And I just want to give thanks, and thank you for Franny for hanging with us. It's good to see you. I know it's getting close to bedtime, and let me just offer this prayer as we depart. Gracious Spirit, you have called us to stand with you for those who need us most. Help us to grow and learn and make a difference each day. And I especially pray for the children who have driven by, who have looked out and seen persons who say this matters, and to the children who've participated, who have been standing with us as well. For all these gifts, we give thanks. And for the legacy of Bob Seymour, we pray this in the name of Jesus, who stood on behalf of the least of these. Amen. All right. Parting is sweet sorrow. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
And Amy, thank you. Amy Lee, my
Always
fearless
good to be here.
co-host.
Always glad to be here. And it was hard to not be part of these vigils. I was trying to be extra protective of an extended member of our family that's come at a
I
cost.
understand.
And
Yes.
so this was really meaningful.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the right thing.
And
Thanks,
I have to
Stephanie.
tell you, when I see your face and I know you're there, I just feel better. So,
Oh, we need heart friends. Thank you.
and good night.